welcome to this episode of the TADAT podcast. My name is Wageni Kimani Wamba. I am from the Kenya Revenue Authority. Now, the Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool, or TADAT, is an effective basis for peer-to-peer knowledge exchange amongst tax administrations across the globe. Now, on April 4th this year of 2022, a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, was signed by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation for Rwanda and Zambia to enhance their cooperation through tax administration. This MOU triggered an agreement to develop a joint program consisting of knowledge transfer through peer-to-peer coaching. The objective of this program is to optimize mutual benefits from the collaboration of these two revenue authorities. In today's episode, we speak to representatives of the Rwanda Revenue Authority and the Zambia Revenue Authority about this collaboration, what it implies for the both administrations, the future plans of this partnership, and lessons that can be learned by other revenue agencies and administrations. I would like to introduce our esteemed panel. From the Rwanda Revenue Authority, we have Dr. Innocent Murazi. She is the Commissioner for Strategy and Risk Analysis. Welcome, Dr. Murazi. Good to see you. Next to her is Mr. Ezekiel Firi. Mr. Ezekiel Firi is the Director of Research and Corporate Strategy at the Zambia Revenue Authority. Welcome, Mr. Firi. Now that we have our panel onboarded, allow us to begin our discussion for this podcast. To set context, Dr. Murazi, please tell us what informed the decision for this RRA-ZRA collaboration.
Thank you, Wageni, and for inviting me at the platform, and I'm happy to be with you. Now, the collaboration between ZRA and RRA falls into the bilateral cooperation between Rwanda and Zambia. And one of the aspects concerns the exchange of practices to improve the design and administration of tax systems. And as highlighted by the MOU you mentioned, which was signed by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation for the two countries, such cooperation would serve common interests and contribute to the modernization of ZRA and RRA processes, legal frameworks, information and technology, and human capital development for efficient and effective execution of each tax authority mandate. So you would understand that this touches almost all the aspects of a tax administration. Over to you again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Murazi. I think I would like you to just elaborate a bit more on that collaboration before I bring in Dr. Firi. Why, from RRA's perspective, why ZRA? Why ZRA?
Okay. As I said, that was a targeted choice just to implement what was agreed between the two countries.
Okay.
Of course, what I can say is we've started with ZRA, but the purpose even for these conversations is to replicate what we are going with other tax administrations, Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Let me bring in Ezekiel Firi. Ezekiel, talk to us about the current status of the collaboration since the signing of the MOU in April. It's been about maybe 6 or so months.
Thank you, Wageni, and I would like to thank you and the TADAT Secretariat for this opportunity to share our experiences on this very important subject. First of all, I would like to mention that to operationalize this MOU that Dr. Innocent has just talked about, RRI and ZRI agreed to use the TADAT framework to benchmark against to benchmark against each other. So in this regard, identification of problem areas was based on the TADAT performance outcome areas, inspired by the scores of each dimension in the TADAT. And there's also the aspect of customs in this cooperation. So for customs, because we do not yet have a tool like TADAT, what we did was just to emulate the spirit of TADAT. So each administration had to identify good practices through the discussions that took place between the time the MOU was actualized up to this moment as we speak. So that is in terms of the background. But the current status, just to answer your question, Wageni, the current status of the collaboration is that we have reached a very advanced stage, and it's quite exciting at this moment. So far, we've had one official physical visit to RRI. ZRI was given the privilege by our sister administration to be the first one to undertake a physical visit among the many that we've planned. So we've done one physical visit, which was done recently, and this was preceded by several virtual meetings between the two administrations that took place between the time that you've mentioned, 4th April, up to this moment. But narrowing down to the physical meeting, which took place in the month of October, specifically it took place between 9th October and 15th October 2022. So it was a high-level delegation, which was led by our Commissioner General, Mr. Dingani Banda, who was accompanied by, among other senior officials, our Commissioner for Indirect Taxes and Excise, and the Director for Design, Monitoring, and International Relations. So this was quite a high-powered delegation, and it included the technical team that was there to benchmark against what Rwanda is doing. So in terms of the objectives of this physical visit that took place, there were 3 objectives. The first one was to have a face-to-face high-level meeting between RRI and ZRI for purposes of enhancing the mutual administrative assistance. And this was done very successfully between the two commissioners general. And then the second objective was the signing of the action plan document for mutual cooperation by the two administrations. And again, I'm happy to report that this was done very successfully during this undertaking. The third one, and which was on a very technical level, was to conduct an in-depth study of what Rwanda has implemented, the electronic billing system, for purposes of replicating a similar system in Zambia. So I must just mention that VAT is one of the biggest challenges in Zambia, and I think that even in most African countries, this has been quite a challenge. But speaking about Zambia specifically, what we note is that there's been declining performance of VAT. And when we look at our colleagues in RRI, right now they seem to be doing very well. They are collecting about 35%. VAT contributes about 35% of their collections. Contrary to that, in Zambia currently, we're at 20% of our collections. And in terms of the system setup, when we look at what our colleagues have done, we know that there's a lot to learn from them. So we are thrilled by the fact that this is a very good opportunity for us to learn in terms of what RRI has done in terms of the implementation of the electronic billing system. So that's in terms of those objectives. Then coming to the other aspects of the program, the RRI team, and Dr. Innocent can confirm this, the RRI team is scheduled to do a reciprocal visit in line with the program agreement or the roadmap document which we which was signed between the two administrations. In addition, we have lined up several benchmarking visits and peer-to-peer technical assistance missions. These will be done both in physical form and in virtual, because now there's this opportunity for virtual meetings. So these will be lined up in the year 2023 and beyond. So we are quite excited about that prospect. Further, during the just ended 7th ATAF General Assembly, hosted by Nigeria in Lagos at the beginning of this month, we took advantage on the sidelines of this meeting. The two commissioners general for the two administrations had further bilateral engagements to cement the relations between the two administrations. So I'm picking it on the question that you asked, Dr. Innocent, why Zambia? I think they are a natural choice in terms of the benchmarking. We have a long-standing relation. So among some of the key issues discussed were the issue to do with benchmarking on the structure of ZRA. We are at a point where we are just coming from a TADAT assessment, and we think that in terms of the governance structure, we would want to get to something that would deliver the results. Secondly, we looked at issues to do with the implementation of compliance improvement plan, data analytics, data science, where our colleagues are quite strong. And we also looked at a number of issues to do with human capital, capacity building, and debt management. So these are some of the areas in terms of outlining where we are. Thank you. Over to you again.
Thank you very much, Firi, for that. I think I just want some clarity. You said you had 3 objectives for this particular, excuse me, this particular MOU. And one of the objectives was the in-depth study that you had with Rwanda in terms of just understanding their systems. And you are able to articulate that you noted that ZRA noted the VAT growth of 35% by Rwanda. And so my question on that would be, were you able to establish whether that was the incremental growth? Was it as a result of implementation of the EBM, or from your study, were there other components that led to the growth of VAT to make it stand at 35%? And maybe even what was it before the implementation of the components?
That's a very important question, and I think part of the answer lies in some of the clarity that you've provided within the question. We understand that there are several components that have made Rwanda to have a contribution of 35% to total revenue. Of course, even the revenue composition in the two countries differ. We depend on mining. They depend on something else, but looking at the VAT as a major contributor to tax, I think that one should not differ so much. So what we've noticed is that part of the major contributing factor to the contribution, to the high contribution of VAT at about 35% compared to our 20%, lies in the way they've done the system. And we've noticed that some of the problems that have arisen or that have led to revenue leakages in our system are to do with maybe the way we've set up our system. There are, of course, other measures that we would like to set up outside the system itself. We recently undertook further benchmarking visits, courtesy of the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF. We benchmarked with Brazil, with Chile, and with Peru. And we noted quite a number of shortcomings in terms of the setup. So we hope that when we put all this together, with the success story that we've seen in RRA, that should be able to turn the tables around. Thank you.
All right, Doctor, thank you, Firi, for that. Dr. Murasi, let me bring you here. Firi is very clear in terms of, from the ZRA perspective, what they want to gain out of this MOU. Okay, very clear. We want to look into our structures. How is RRA doing it? Want to look at the debt management strategy. How is RRA doing it, and how can we do it better? How do they manage human capital? What can we gain from data science and data analytics? And so ZRA is very clear on what they want in terms of outcomes from this MOU. Because this is a symbiotic relationship. Dr. Murasi, what is RRA projecting in terms of outcomes, benefits from this MOU?
Okay, thank you again. First of all, let me make an adjustment. The 35% is the contribution of VAT to the total envelope of our tax revenues. And as Ezekiel said, of course, I can affirm that 70% of achievement is due to the electronic billing machine we are using successfully. So now we expect, as he also mentioned, you remember we are using TADAT to know who is strong in which area. So wherever they are strong and wherever we think we are weak, or as TADAT showed, that's where we are going to focus. And one of the main area is focusing on some specific sectors, including especially mining sector. We've realized that they are advanced in collecting their taxes in mining sector, and this is where we be focusing. And except that everywhere they managed to score A and to score B. On the same area, when we realized that we scored a C or a D, that's where we are going to focus. Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, and I think that's a very good place to start, so that this is more of collaboration and co-creation. What, we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to learn from what others have done. Yes, where did they win? Can we win in that area? Where did they lose? Can we learn the lesson? So far, let me just still stay with you, Dr. Murasi. Mm-hmm. It's been maybe about 6 months since the MOU was signed. Have you observed any benefits so far? Firi was able to articulate his benefits very clearly. From the RRA perspective, any benefits you could share with us?
Maybe for me to describe the benefits we got, it's important that we understand the difficulties we had encountered before we decided to use TADAT. We had decided to build our cooperation on a peer support or peer coaching program, basing on each party's good practices. This kind of learning involves individual exchanging knowledge and experience with each other and spreading this back to their organization to initiate a relevant reform initiative. So the first step was to try and undertake a thorough identification of good practices in each tax authority. So for that, we needed real experts in each domain so that we could have an overview of what fulfills an international standards, because we cannot just call something a good practice without benchmarking it against other practices. So such an exercise could easily take 6 months or even more, and only if we have adequate cross-cutting experts. So that's how, during our exchanges, we came to realize that we have a golden bank of information that was not exploited enough that could serve for that purpose, and that was TADAT assessment findings in which of the 2 tax authorities. And that was actually the best way to go. And that is a great lesson learned that can also serve other tax administration. So that has been so beneficial in terms that, one, We managed to save time and resources by not making a new assessment because the assessment was already done through TADAT. We did not need to reinvent the wheel since each tax administration would just have to replicate or customize its counterparts' good practices. It will also allow, more importantly, ZRA and RRA to address weaknesses that were identified by TADAT assessment and hoping to improve scores where we did not do well. And that is very important to us. And as a great milestone, as Ezekiel mentioned, we have now TADAT-based joint action plans whose some activities have been already implemented, as he mentioned. Yeah, that's what I can say. Again, thank you. Over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Murasi. Let me bring you in here. You previously talked about action plans that perhaps you have already begun implementing. For instance, the high-level visit that you had to RRA, the bilateral between the two commissioner generals. And so there has been milestones that have been already achieved in the 6 months of the life of this MOU. Two questions on that. Are you in a position to reveal maybe the life of this MOU, number one? And two, if you're in a position, then what next? What are the other maybe action plans, or what are the other activities that that you have planned in the next maybe 6 months or 12 months for the life of the MOU that you are at liberty to share with us in terms of this collaboration? And as you do that, also let us know the other revenue administrations who are listening to this conversation and they're interested, whether they're welcome to the party as well.
Thank you. Quite a loaded question. I'll try to follow through your question and respond one by one. There is quite a lot lined up. The key aspects in terms of the next steps, as you have mentioned, are outlined in the action plan document for mutual cooperation. So what is interesting about this is that the TADAT methodology we have applied has given us a comprehensive list, or what you may call menu, of items to attend to in order for the two sister revenue administrations to ascend to international good practice in terms of processes, legal frameworks, information technology, human capital development, as earlier mentioned by my colleague. So we have a huge menu to chew on. So this is one of the exciting parts that we see in terms of the cooperation going forward. Now, when it comes to the technical committees, we've set up joint technical committees, as mentioned, which are based on the outcome areas. So we have a technical committee for each outcome area, and we based it on each of the 9 outcome areas. So there are teams working from RRA to ZRA, looking at all these, assessing the scores and looking at where we are doing well and so on. So what will happen is that we have agreed on the key performance indicators that we have set based on this framework that we've agreed upon. So what we are doing is that we have a timetable for how we are going to assess ourselves in terms of how we are performing. So the key performance indicators, which are very objective because they're based on the TADAT methodology, they will show us whether we are ascending to perfection or not in the due course. Then in terms of whether there are plans to co-opt others, yes, there are plans to extend partnerships to other revenue administrations. So I just want to share one perspective from the ZRI perspective. We have in our corporate strategic plan, which runs from 2022 to 2024, we have an agenda to benchmark against other revenue administrations in various critical areas. And we are hoping that this methodology that we have developed with RRI, which is based on the TADAT framework, will act as a cornerstone for more effective collaboration. So it will be a tested arrangement. And so as we venture to benchmark with other administrations, we are going to have a well-baked tool that we will test now with other administrations. So like I mentioned earlier, on the sideline, we've been benchmarking with those countries that I mentioned, just for emphasis, Brazil, Chile, and Peru on VAT control measures. So we are hoping that all these things will put together. And within Africa, we are also hoping that we can benchmark with other neighboring administrations and others that are especially those that are members of the ATAF. So we'll be doing all this benchmarking. So most of these are welcome. So we'll be venturing more into those. Then, as you may be aware already, apart from the ongoing bilateral engagements between ZRIA and RRIA, you know that RRIA has also been very instrumental in benchmarking with other revenue administrations, especially in Africa, because I think they have an admirable track record in the areas that we've mentioned, especially in the area of data science, data analytics, and so on. So we have observed them benchmarking with other countries, and that's really what attracted us to benchmark against them. Then in the customs space, we are also hoping to implement customs to customs data exchange with other countries. And this will also become a trigger for further collaboration on inland taxes. So we would like to make sure that we get data from other customs administration to mirror with the data that we have on the import side of things, so that we are able to even pre-populate some of the declarations that are done by importers. As you know, Zambia is an import-dependent country, and there have been situations where declarations made on the flip side of customs are totally different from the inland side. So this is one of the agendas that we have to make sure that we benchmark on the customs side, and it will help us really to now deal with it on the inland side. So for now, that's what I would say on that. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Ferry, because you brought out a lot of collaboration and co-creation, and that is exactly what the TADAT framework is really about. Can we bring revenue authorities, administrations together and just create a learning environment for Kaizen, continuous improvement? In the dying minutes of this vodcast, may I just bring in Dr. Murasi for your parting shot on this particular MOU, on this partnership with ZRA, the future, what that portends for you as RRA.
Thank you once again, Wageni. My last word would be just to highlight that TADAT being the basis and objective and providing standardized knowledge about our tax administration. It is an incredible instrument that can be used not only to improve our tax administration in our countries, but also has been proven, basing on our experience, to be an important peer-to-peer learning tool. So I would urge all African countries to not take it for granted and start making it a foundation of improving our tax administration with minimum areas through this co-creation, as you said. So let this be a pilot project to be replicated with other tax administration, and this also a call for TADAT secretariat so that they can facilitate such exchanges. I submit. Again, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ino-san and Mr. Ferry. Before I let the two of you go, can I please just share one question that has come from the audience to each of you? So let me just share it with you, and maybe Firi, you could answer this question. Are you looking to reviewing each other's progress as you go through this journey? And if so, how are you likely to proceed on this path? Firi, you want to give a response to that question and your closing thoughts as well?
Thank you very much for that question. Indeed, the part of the agreed arrangement between RRA and ZRA is that we are going to do peer-to-peer, for example, technical assistance. So in areas where RRA is strong, we are going to request for technical assistance, and experts from that administration are going to come through to work with our teams on the ground and deal with the problem. And then after that phase, we replicate, for example, what the IMF does in terms of doing follow-up missions, so that we are able to track progress on what has been learned during that technical assistance. So indeed, like the question has suggested, that is part of the objective of this. And we also hope that in the process we can do more similar, because our framework is based on the TADAT. It's easier to track progress by sending a team of ZRI officials to track, because we have quite a number of people that have been trained in the TADAT methodology. So for objectivity, part of the plan could be to begin to track each other's progress, because this is a continuous game. And so we hope that this will be done in that fashion. In terms of my closing remarks, I would like to really thank you again and the TADAT Secretariat for giving us this great opportunity to share our country experiences on how the TADAT framework can be applied as a practical benchmarking tool across many spheres of the revenue administration. So thank you very much, and I hope I've answered the question that has come from the audience.
Yes, you have, Firi. Thank you very much for that response and for your closing remarks. Let me bring in Dr. Murasi. Here is a question for you as you also give us your closing remarks. And the question is, are you planning or have you already planned to second staff to each other's revenue administration in the stronger, quote, stronger areas?
Thank you, Wageni. Of course, as you know, each and every POA has got a group of people from ZRA and from RRA. So as we said, where you find you are strong, actually, I think it has been started because a group of RRA staff is getting ready to go to Zambia to provide support to ZRA in terms of using the electronic machine, the electronic billing machine, as we've been saying. So everything, the cooperation is quite flexible. Depending on the needs that will arise, we are ready to do what it requires so that we can enhance each other. So some of them are clearly marked in our action plan, but others we come as we go along implementing our action plan. Yeah, thank you once again. And as I said, let's take advantage of this TADAT assessment findings that we have, which can serve to improve our tax administration. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murasi. Let me finalize with a comment from the audience. And this is from Jane Muguchu from Kenya Revenue Authority. Hello, Jane. She says, assessment report is a good basis for establishing areas of collaboration among tax administrations. Well done, RRA, and well done, ZRA. And it's on that I just want to say thank you very much, Dr. Murasi. Dr. Murasi is the Commissioner for Strategy and Risk Analysis analysis at the Rwanda Revenue Authority. Thank you as well to Mr. Ezekiel Firi. Mr. Ezekiel Firi is the Director for Research and Corporate Strategy at the Zambia Revenue Authority. Thank you so much to the two of you for sharing your experiences, letting us know about this MOU, letting us know, how the two revenue administrations are growing and having a symbiotic relationship because of this MOU, and really just encouraging the rest of us in other revenue administrations that this is also another way that we could use to harness the potential that lies within various revenue administrations. Thank you for your insights as well. Thank you for our active audience for watching us and listening to us through the TADAT YouTube channel, the TADAT LinkedIn channel, the KRA TV. Thank you very much. We appreciate your engagement and just tuning in for this quick catch up on the two revenue administrations. Now, every 2 weeks, we have a TADAT coffee chat. This is just a very informal conversation between revenue administrations on various areas of interest where we come and discuss on things that are common to all of us. What are the lessons that we're learning? What is working where? What is not working where? What can we learn? What can we glean? So you need to look out for the next coffee chat, which will be in about 2 weeks' time. The announcement of the links to join will be on the TADAT social media handles. And so be on the lookout for that for our next topic. Now, this TADAT podcast or vodcast is brought to you by the TADAT Secretariat. And we just want to say thank you very much to Wufai for planning this, to Mr. Justin Zake, and the entire team that was behind the planning of today's vodcast. And thanks once again to ZRA and RRA for just sharing their insights. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to wish you a lovely day for those who are starting their day and a lovely evening for those who are starting their evening.